Yeah. That's what their hope. Oh. Hey, welcome, Mac. Welcome to the Imaginarium. But this is actually Mindsgaming's interview. We're hosting this like every Thursday. We kind of switch back and forth between gamers and creatives, which there's a lot of blend between the two, you know.
Oh yeah.
But anyways.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sweet. Cool. I had no idea. That's awesome.
So what does your channel focus on over there, man?
Oh man, I focus on I focus on poetry. I guess I focus on things that I think are important. Like some politics, some what's happening over the site, in Minds, and the cool content that I find. But I've settled on kind of putting a lot of time and effort into the poetry group.
Okay. Good.
And the dreams group. So I got two groups. I got a dreams group and a poetry group. And I alternate between. And I basically go between those two and the news feed to find my content. And then I post I just post a bunch of the different contents that I make.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's actually how Mia and Mac met in the poetry group, and I don't even know how the poetry group got like on my radar or something. But like it was like you and Curry, like you guys came onto Minds, and then like all of a sudden I just seen like activity, and I kind of was like, okay, what's going on? And then we had the open mic night, and that was cool. That was like one of the, especially when groups and gatherings was first happening. That's when Mac wanted to test it out. That was a pretty cool little moment, a flash of a moment on Minds of like seeing what the possibilities is of like more people interacting and kind of doing something more than just posting, I think, which was interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing more of those open mics. I don't know if you heard, but next Thursday, the 11th at 7:30 Eastern Time, we're doing a first ever 2021 Minds Gathering open mic. So anybody can share the poems. What I'm asking people to do is to post their poems in the group before we do the mic so that we can all read it and, maybe have some thoughts gestillating, circulating around. Gestillating, eh? Yeah. So, when people have this opportunity to perform and to read their work, it's always great to have like a real life kind of feedback. And so obviously every experience that you have with the poem is unique when somebody reads it. If you're familiar with the poem, you can actually like really digest it when somebody's expressing it out loud. So I'm hoping it's a cool kind of format. And it was when we were trying it 2 years ago. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. That was kind of like interesting just because of like technical difficulties and people's signals going in and out. But I remember a couple of times where the whoever wrote the poem was reading it and they got cut out, and then like you finished reading the poem, and then we had like several different takes of other people like reading a poem. I think that was interesting as well. When you're engaging with a poem, and whether you read it and then you hear someone speak it, but then even to your interpretation of how it's read. Mac was always pretty good at reading other people's poems, I think.
Thanks. Well, I think it has to do with just honoring the work, and I think I'm already supposed to be reading Near Miss's work, and she's a really good poet. So we're gonna. She let me. I think she said she wanted me to read it, so I'll read one of her stuff for her. She might be there or not, but So
yeah, man.
Yeah, it should be good. So what do you think about them?
Well, this is kind of interesting about, you're talking about the groups that you have, the dreaming group and the poetry group. Mindsgaming, his developing of groups and community, as well as Minds early on, of like trying to create this, interactive group more than just like posting where like people like what you said, like the open mic night. There was a moment where like it was really fun and interesting to like have something to look forward to, and then like engaging in a different way. I think more social in a way, you know, than like passively engaging with something else that you were good at, and something that we have talked about with other people is engaging again. And I'm trying to do my part, I guess, in comment culture. You know, like if you really like someone's content, then like engage with a comment, even if it's like encouragement. But like, you know, something I appreciate with Mac, and I try to do and try to make time, is like to really engage with your content and try to give you, you know, the way I express it is in verses of my own stream of consciousness, you know, whether it was on like your movie or, you know, like different things that I've engaged with your content. It's kind of like my rip or my take on whatever I felt experiencing your different expressions.
It's always good to see. I kind of feel bad, you know, you bring that up, and like right now, you know, I'm not commenting just for today and yesterday. I haven't really been commenting on the poems in my group, just because I've been doing it for I think like a month now. I came back in January, and so I've been commenting on poems every day, and I just need a little bit of a break. But because I spend so much attention in that group, when I take a break, I'm like, no one else gets any comments. I'm not going through the newsfeed or nothing. It's just, you know, my mind is, I'm taking a walk, and I'm gonna come back. But I also think, you know, I spent some time away, and you know, there wasn't any moderation really in my group, and people are still posting poems and reading them, and they still come back to post poems. So and there wasn't a whole lot of comments going on. You know, you never know who's going to read, who's actually reading the poem, and they just don't feel like commenting, and that's completely true, you know.
And that's perfectly fine as well.
Yeah.
You know, that's something interesting with people that I actually know in like life, and I have like gave them some stuff that I wrote or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like they didn't say much about it, and that was cool or whatever. But like later on, like maybe we're at a party and maybe we're you know, a little bit more open about our expressions, and they just said like they just different things, and they just, you know, they didn't know how to like respond, and so like their non-response was just like, you know, it's not like it was bad or good, but it like maybe dealt with something that they weren't, you know, they were still trying to express themselves, you know. Which is interesting. Sometimes I feel like that too when I engage with.
I mean, sometimes you know what's the worst is when you read a poem that you really like, that's like engaging and interesting, and effective, and then you just don't know what to say about it. You don't know how to talk about it. You don't know what kind of comment you should write. Everything seems contrived, and it's so frustrating because it looks like, you know, it could have been something where you just pass by and you click like and you don't read the poem, and they will never know. They will never know that you sat there for like literally like, you know, 15 minutes, like being like,
dude,
did I say that?
There's several poets in the group that I feel like that. Like every time I like engage with like their poems, like I just sit there and be like, that was dope. I just don't know what to say. Since I just like.
Yeah,
cool.
and then it sucks.
What was the first thing that got you into poems?
Yeah. Oh, what first got me into poems?
Yeah.
Well, it was reading Octavio Paz, actually. It was this Nobel Prize winning Mexican poet, surrealist. Had a book lying around in my girlfriend's room at the time, and I picked it up, and it seemed to me like a music video in thought. And I thought that was such a cool thing. I went to film school, so you know, film is very expensive. It's very hard to do. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot on the line to do anything really. And so I was really resonating with how easy it was to write poems. And, you know, I kept having these awesome experiences playing around with it and also reading other stuff. So I got Dante's Divine Comedy, and I think Tracy K. Smith's Life on Mars as my first 2 poetry books that I bought myself. When you buy a poetry book and you really like want to like read it, it is like, you know, you kind of live with it like a novel, but it's more like you jump in and out. You're like, oh, I'll read a poem here. I'll read a poem. It's like having an art gallery in your pocket, wandering into different kinds of poems. But I wanted to say with the comments, I want to return back to comments because I think it's really interesting. My favorite comments, my favorite comments that I make, I feel like the ideal is they're seeds. I like plant a seed that what I hope, the ideal is that a poet reads what I write back to them. And it's almost like a poem in itself in which they remember, you know, it just makes them, it like allows them to see what they're doing from a completely different angle. And it gives them some sort of potential seed that grows in the future to someplace else. You know, if I can feel like I've done that, and who knows if I do it, but you know, that's the kind of context in which sometimes I try to write, other than like, oh, I just want to flatter this person. Oh, I just want this person to feel like the community is active. My most inspired comments really feel like poetry themselves. And sometimes I'll write, like I wrote one comment for Emily Nelson. That was literally some of the best writing I've ever produced. Literally, like I honestly felt like, you know, she's like a master poet, and I felt like a master poet responding to her. And it literally felt like homework. You're doing like math homework almost, describing what each line is doing. And you do it took like a half hour to work on this shit. And then I post it. And then I feel bad because all these other poems, I'm like, oh, now everybody knows what happens when I spend a half hour on a poem. And, you know, maybe I'm not spending a half hour with this poem over here, you know. It gets kind of tricky kind of thing. I thought that was going to give me energy to like really, really like go in on a poem and just like really describe every little detail of it. But actually produced a tiredness of me. I like after that, I was just like, oh, I'm done for the night. I can't.
No, there is something about that where I, in my own different ways of engaging with other material and other things of, you know, being tired after spending, you know, attention and energy into something. Then you're like, oh, okay. You kind of like your bandwidth is a little like low. Yeah. You're just like, I kind of you know, and there's always an ebb and flow to creativity. I think too. You know, there's times where it comes with more energy, and then sometimes there's you know, not as easy.
I was just talking to a gamer, and yeah. And I always mess up his name. I always feel bad, but yeah, I was just talking to him the other day, and he was talking about how he writes sci-fi books, and so he was talking about how the comments always help him like think about the next characters and how they produce like and the different situations that they can get into, because some of those things like that his fans think of are just ridiculous, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess that could happen, but like I would never thought of that. So it's like inspiration on top of inspiration on top of inspiration. So it's just, it's just a rolling
just, you know what I mean? Just in my own practice and my own method of creativity with doing the videos and other things that I like to do of mashing up and doing things, like it always seems when I like my edits the best, it always is something new and fresh that like is the last piece in like my collage that like puts, like I have a little empty space and I don't know why, and then maybe I hear a song or maybe I hear a line from someone and I'm like, okay, this kind of like makes things better. Like one time I waited a long time to release an edit of me and Curry talking about VR and stuff like that, and then when I saw Eclipse in Binary post a video of him in the VR room that Mindsgaming was working on, And I was just like, oh, this is what I was waiting for. So I played that video over me and Curry talking about the possibility of that room. So like by the time I do the edit, the room is not just theoretical that we were dreaming up. It's like something that you could go to, and someone else is like, in the room playing around in it, which I thought was like a cool layer to my own edit. And a good thing why I waited. Yeah, and like things like that are always fun to see, like the feedback, and that's what's the important thing about like having like the communities and something Mindsgaming has told other newer channels of, if you want to if you're worried about like someone engaging and just like start your own like thing, like do your own like group, like work, like, or you find a group and like work at it, like post in there and like engage with people.
Yeah,
like that's just how it works.
Like, the groups are a great way to start the whole comment culture, because like you're dedicated to get that group moving, and you want to talk to the people that are joining your group, and then they want to talk back to you. So groups are definitely a great way to grow your comment culture online. So I think that's a good place to start, definitely.
Yeah. I when I first joined Minds, I made a group like right away. I think it was like within the first week. And yeah, my style has always been to post. I'll post a little bit on my feed, but mostly I'll post in my groups and then remind from my groups to my feed. And then everybody in my feed sees the group that I'm posting to.
Yeah, that's how I do it. I remind from the groups. Yep. And then sometimes I will like disappear into groups for a couple of days and just be posting them. People are like, where are you? Oh yeah, I haven't been reminding. Sorry, let me start doing that.
Yeah. I also used to have, I don't know about how much you guys post, but I used to have this thing where I'm like, oh, I'm only gonna post like maybe twice a day max. I don't want to tax anybody's attention. But with the newsfeed, I find I just remind and post willy-nilly these days, honestly.
Oh yeah. I don't care.
I know I'm just dipping in a stream, and I know I'll probably get like maybe 20 different people to see it, whoever's on the site right now, and they probably won't in the future. So it is kind of like this immediate medium. There's not a whole lot of lasting. Nobody's really going through your feed and like seeing everything that you posted, really.
Yeah. I don't know how many people actually like go through channels. I know a few channels that do it, but
yeah. I like doing it to myself. I like being like, oh, this is where I was. This is what I posted. Wow.
Yeah. I go through.
I remember that. That was a good one. Hey.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? It's like so I have SatoriD, and then I have the Infinite Imaginarium, which me and Cartman one share. Anyways, we use them differently. Like one's like a group kind of community channel, and then one's my own channel, and they mirror a lot of times each other. But like when I'm active and like trying to engage, like I want that one to be like something where you remind, and I even go and try to get like deep cuts of like things that were happened like 2 years ago or whatever, just to like or something like maybe that I missed a video or something like that of somebody that I missed like a couple weeks ago or whatever. Then I'll remind that, or sometimes on that channel I try to like remind like content, like when Mac was on Censorship Sucks show, and then like remind all the like shows of kind of like similar things and stuff like that. So like I always kind of feel the same way, like things get lost in the shuffle, but at the same time with some coordination, like things could get back into rotation.
Yeah.
Like I always I've been viewed the whole like feed and how it works. Always been interested on like that part of it, which I think Mindsgaming has as well.
Yeah. I don't get why like the whole when you post in a group, if somebody subs to you, they should see that post. Like if you know what I mean. Even though it's inside a group, they should see it on their feed because they're subbed to you. That's my feeling. But
I think they do. I think that's the way it works, right? Like
No, they
your channel.
No, they used to have it that way, but I think Oh no, what he's saying is a little different. Like, if you subscribe to the group, then you could go in the group and see it. But like, it doesn't go into your normal feed. Like when you're scrolling, it used to do that in groups. Like when they first revamped it, I believe that was how it was. But I think it was like too much. Like, you know, you can't have every meme wars meme in your feed. And it'll go nonstop.
Always classic group.
That would be endless.
Meme wars.
Oh.
Meme wars. It's the classic group. You got to go there.
You gotta.
That sounds like one of those like phone app battle games.
Yeah. It was that's like rap battles.
Yeah.
Rap battle. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, I have one that's bot battles where your bots have to talk to each other, and the listener gets to say which one is did the best like talking and had the best responses. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Gotta make something like that, man. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
You play any games?
Man, I was just thinking about Minecraft.
Minecraft. You like Minecraft?
Yeah. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I was playing it a lot, and I was listening to a lot of like podcasts that were trying to like be like intellectual and shit. And I couldn't even really understand what they were saying because I was busy doing the game, but I got the impression of like ideas and that kind of like analytical thinking but not really just the aesthetic experience of hearing people like that talk while mining around. And I found that to be really enjoyable. And, it's almost like if you put something on in your sleep, is your brain like taking it in? Like, what's it doing with that information? What's going on? I have no idea. In one ear, out the other.
Dude,
mining away. And before I know it, I'm thinking of Minecraft as like literally like, oh, when I read a book, it's like I'm mining these texts for meaning and for ideas and for all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember really enjoying Minecraft for that. It was very relaxing, especially like the stressful beginning 2 weeks of lockdown, not having a job, not working for the first time in my adult life.
Games are a great de-stressor, man.
Yeah.
Minecraft, you could do so much in Minecraft. You can get your mind off anything. Build your own little world, pretend you're in there. You know what I mean?
Man, I would love to play it in VR. As soon as they get that like in a good format and it's not janky, I'll play it. I'll definitely play it. I've been playing. I was just playing today. Death Unchained. Have you ever played this? It's VR.
No. What is it about?
It's like a Dante's Inferno inspired or Divine Comedy inspired shooter. It's a bow and arrow game and also a crossbow game. And you're in these like randomly generated levels that are like Purgatory, Paradiso, and Inferno. And it's very challenging. It's like an arcade shooter almost, but it's really well designed. It's almost like the Dark Souls of VR gaming. That's what it's known for.
Nice.
Yeah,
you said that's a VR too?
What's that?
You're in VR with that too?
Yeah, I'm on the Quest 2 playing that. I've been playing Population 1 in there.
Okay.
Which is a battle royale VR shooter. Interesting.
Yeah. I haven't found many VR first-person shooters. Like, there's only a few. Like, most of the VRs that I found are really basic. Like for the games, it's like either like a roller coaster ride or a escape room or something
like a map.
Like that.
Oh yeah, man, they're getting
like
good.
A maze or something.
Oh, it's like, I mean, it's interesting seeing it develop because you are sensing these developers experiment, and they're coming up with these UI implementations that are completely experimental, and you're getting a sense of what VR is going to be probably in like 5 years, and it'll be slick.
Oh yeah. I have no doubt about that. I definitely can see where it can go, and all that. But it's like, I want to be in Ready Player One tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Well, here's something that Population 1 does that's really interesting that you might like. Every gun has a different reload mechanism that you actually have to like do with your hands. So like, you know, you'll have to like with your controllers, you're normally like this, you know, you got two controllers in your hand, and then you have to cock it back and then take ammo and pop it into your gun in order to go back. It's not just pressing a button to reload.
Right.
And each gun has a different mechanism to do it. Like to eat a banana, which is like a health thing, you have to take each peel, and that takes time to do. And sometimes like you're scrambling to do it before you can pop it in your mouth. So it's almost like you do a little physical puzzle,
right.
as integrated into this like fast-paced shooter type dynamic.
That's good, man.
Yeah, it's pretty compelling.
Yeah, man. That's the next evolution of gaming right there. It's, you know, you actually have to do what is happening on screen. You know what I mean? Like, just think of all the like assassin games you could make. You could make you know, the
There's a problem with the sword stuff. Well, the sword game that I have basically you can do just damage by touching the sword. It doesn't matter the trajectory. So you end up taking this like basically this sword and you start just poking it around and doing this, like almost like you're dusting your enemy.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, instead of being like, oh, it's weightless. So you're just like do damage. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of solutions they come up with.
Yeah. I would definitely like to see like I remember Assassin's Creed, like the ones where it was all multiplayer and like you could hide in the crowds and stuff, and then you'd have to kill the other assassins if you found them and stuff like that. Like I remember that one, like that, how much fun that would be in a VR kind of setting where you would actually have to be hiding in the crowd and stuff. Like,
Absolutely. Third player stuff is also viable. It ends up feeling, one of the things that they manipulate in VR is perspective. So you can be in this world like from the first person, and then you can shoot out to third person, and you're this tiny little guy, and you're like almost like a collector's like looking down at his like figurines, and everything is now a figurine. And then you pop back into your body, and everything's now like realistically sized. And you know they do that all the time.
That's crazy. That's cool though, but like that perspective, you know, what's interesting is that can you? Mindsgaming, are you there? Mac, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so what I was talking about was, I think Mindsgaming is going in and out. But anyways, I was doing this, it was called like a social experiment. But anyways, I was testing this thing. Everybody could use it like for free for like 20 people or whatever. I forgot exactly what it was called. It's called like High Fidelity or something like that. But anyways, you're in this like map, and you can control it by your keyboard or other different things. But anyways, you see the screen and you move around in the area, but you hear differently. Like you hear, and it has like a little like cone of like where your vocal's going, so that you position that to like talk to people. Like if you're like facing them and you're projecting your voice, right? And then you can go like that. So it gives you this weird experience. And what was difficult was that when you're zoomed in and you only see your one area, it's hard to navigate. And so when you zoom out, then you see like the whole like landscape, and then you can figure out where you were. But like we were also playing like Marco Polo, and we were like Marco Polo, and then like trying to see if we could hear people, because like the further away you are, the less you could hear them. Like it lowers it. And so that was interesting. And what you were saying about that VR game about like even being first person, or then like zooming out and then seeing everything in third person, which is cool. and interesting perspective.
Oh yeah,
I think it's.
Mine's kicked me on, so I missed a little bit of that, but I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. I just during that downtime, I just checked the markets and then I was like, oh my god, everything's red.
Yeah.
You ever have that? You ever have that? Everything's red right now. Down 8%, down 14%, down 11%. Oh, do I sell? What do I do?
Yeah.
Bye.
Speaking of games, this is a game. There's like constant gambling.
Oh yeah. Stock market. What? There's so many stock market games. It's ridiculous.
Do you guys have any money in that crypto shit?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I have Ethereum.
You got Ethereum. No other coin.
I got Ethereum. I got some Bitcoin. I got
a few other altcoins.
I'll tell you the strategy that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't hold a coin, and then when you see another coin take off, you shouldn't get jealous. Because as soon as you buy into that other coin, that coin's going to drop, and the coin that you were on is going to shoot off, and then you're going to get jealous again, and it's a cycle. It's trying to catch.
Don't do it.
Hard.
Yeah. Gotta stay faithful.
That's strategy. I don't feel bad enough because everything's going down right now. So, I'm losing money. That's okay.
Hey, everybody loses money every once in a while.
That's true. And some of us lose money all the time.
That's like the whole what was that? The trading app, the stock market trading app.
Robinhood.
Yeah. That whole shit that happened. Well, that was crazy. That was a big game for them.
Yeah, that was like a big pop. Everybody everybody felt that one. Everybody was talking about it.
Oh,
Normal people in the streets were talking about it.
Oh yeah, that's crazy, man. I don't know how they got over that shit, but
yeah, for a while there, 2021, just crazy shit was happening every week. Like every Wednesday, something new happened. And now it's kind of died down. There's not as much.
Yeah.
The amount of like. Okay, go on. What did you say?
I was gonna say, going back to poetry. Who's your favorite poet yourself? Like, who's your favorite one?
That's a good question. I mean, I think Transtromer is probably the one that I've been consciously like influenced by the most. Like for the most of the time that you would ask me that question, I would respond with him.
Why are you having second guesses then?
Well, it's not just second guesses, but it's like, you ask like, oh, what's your favorite poet? And, now that I've really broadened my, like, how many people I've read and how many people I've spent time with, like, I'm in this process of reading John Ashbery's Flowchart, and it's a 224-page poem. I uploaded 19 pages of it onto YouTube of, just like a video of me reading it and trying to like read it the best possible way. It reminds me of a game. It reminds me of a side scroller and running across each line and trying not to fall down or trying not to fail or die. You're like, fuck it all. I did 10 minutes of this shit and now the whole thing's ruined.
Bottle
and it's really helping me with pronunciation, and I feel like it's a really helpful practice. When you read poetry, it almost like its meaning programs into you even like harder and faster and deeper, kind of a thing. And especially if you're recording it, that also makes it much more meaningful. So I've been doing that with John Ashbery. I haven't done that with Transtromer. I'm getting a completely different experience with John Ashbery, and he's one of the most influential poets of the 20th century, apparently. And I've noticed that he's doing a lot of the stuff that I've just intuitively done, and that's probably because I've been influenced by poets that were influenced by people that were influenced by him. Or I know for a fact Ben Lerner was influenced by him so hard, he's like mentioning him, name dropping in the poems he's writing. That's how you know it's for real.
Oh,
yeah.
And 10 years later, I find myself writing, poems that are very much like this flowchart, which is really interesting to come back to, and kind of validating in a way of being like, oh, like, you know, real poetry does this, quote unquote real poetry, not my amateur shit. So yeah, really good to. What's that?
So don't pick on me. I'm very amateur when it comes to poems and writings.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing where you can feel as amateur-y as you like. You know, it's you could think like, man, I've never had a, like, if you talk with people with English degrees, you know, who like study poetry professionally or publish it professionally, that, you know, you can very easily feel out of your depths. And, you know, that's kind of one of the problems with academic poetry is you feel like so rigid, so stilted, so like unsure of yourself because you're constantly being measured against your colleagues, against, you know, the establishment, everyone who's come before you. One of the nice things about being a naive autodidact is you don't have those hangups. And sometimes not having those hangups means that you're really arrogant and, you know, you have way too much self-confidence for what you're doing. But on the other hand, you can actually, you're free to really come into your own voice and not really worry about comparing yourself, you know, really taking hopefully a very genuine, you know, development. So if you buy a poetry book today and then you literally, you know, you just read from it every now and then, you're now in the 1%. You're literally now in the 1% of people who know about poetry. You know, if you took you and compared you to the average person, you'd be able to be like, well, I know about poetry. It does this and that because you've actually had that experience. Probably why Milk and Honey is so popular. It's like millions and sold, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I like reading poems, but I'm not like one that would go buy a book of poems or
yeah.
But like I would buy a book that had poems in it by one person. You know what I mean? It's just weird. Like I would have to have a personal connection with you to be able to buy a book.
Yeah, 100%. And like, you know, I think it is worth buying like a book of poems. You know what's not worth buying, in my opinion? Anthologies, like a book of one poem from like one poet, and it's like 1,000 of those. What I'm interested in is like, how do you sequence? You know how like an album is sequenced? It's like, oh, you know, this is the second song, this is the third song. Like, oh, like you have an experience, you travel through the album, the body, it's a whole. Everything kind of informs the whole, and that album feels like a specific entity. You know, I think a book of poems is good for that. You know, where these are sequenced very, you know, purposefully so that the whole experience is heightened. And something about reading poetry on pages is also really good. You know, it really is like a meditative, like, I'm going to meditate tonight. It's like, and then you have like these guided meditations.
Yeah. I mean, I have the writing corner. I don't know if you've ever stopped by there.
Oh yeah, that sounds familiar. I think I'll put my head in.
Yeah, and so every now and then I'll get a few people that will drop a poem in there. Mostly it's a lot of them write stories, but every now and then I'll get a poem in there, and they're always pretty good. I like them. But yeah, I have to make sure to join your make sure I have your poem. Well, I'm probably actually already joined your group. It's just a matter of putting it back into the feed. You know what I mean? Because you only have a certain amount in your list on the sidebar. So
yeah. Yeah, I feel bad. You know, it's like I spend so much time on this group that I feel like I can't spend time, or like I just don't have the attention to spend it anywhere else. And I feel like if everybody has groups, like everybody would like fall into that kind of experience where you don't really visit your neighbors that much. You're just like, oh, I gotta tend to my garden. There's weeds here. There's weeds here. I gotta walk that.
You can't fall into that trap for sure, man. You gotta like we have, you know, we got a bunch of different groups that but we're always trying to push people to build their own groups and then try to link back up with us and then, you know, do that kind of thing because it's all, you know, it's all a community kind of feel, and that's what groups should be. It should be, somewhere you can go that you like the content that you're seeing in there, and that's all it is to it. It's not about who runs it or who owns it. It's about what's in there.
Well, it seems like a lot of these groups, they tend to like collect maybe like 20 different people, and you see those 20 different people all the time. It's a way to like organize and keep together, and instead of having a list of all, it would be nice to have a list of all like the people that I interact with most, or I want to interact with most, or something.
Yeah.
It's like too bad, because I see people, I want to like see their shit all the time, but then because they're not posting in my groups all that often, I end up just not seeing their stuff as much as I would like to.
Yeah, what I really want to see is like them put on alerts for channels. So like if SatoriD were to post a video to his channel, I'd get an alert saying SatoriD uploaded a video, but I wouldn't get an alert every time he just posted something. You know what I mean? Like, so you could itemize your alert.
Yeah. Like say I'm following Mac for his poetry, and then like so. I'm waiting for your next like blog. Like I subscribe to your blog, and then so every time you write your blog, I get like
an email or something.
Yeah. So that I know how to like tune into your channel or whatever, or maybe we do like premieres or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that should be a thing where they treat blogs as like a bigger thing.
Yeah, and this is something that like I've always been about, is like not all content is like should be weighted the same way.
We gotta stop with blogs real quick. I gotta ask him a question about blogs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
so for your blog, for your blogs that you've created, have you ever had someone ask you or say, "Oh, this is a blog. I thought it was just a picture. I didn't know it was a blog."
Yeah, so I think this has been fixed recently, because blogs are, I think, a natural candidate for Minds Plus submissions.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But there was a problem in which if you monetized your blogs, then no one would be able to actually read it. They would only get the cover picture. And they'd come to the blog and there would be no words. So it was unfortunate, because I spent like 10,000 views promoting. I actually, all in all, I probably spent like 25 tokens on these blog posts that nobody could read. But all that's fixed. It's fixed.
So I'm thinking more of the formatting. So like, say you just upload a picture with a header and something underneath that header for the text, right?
Yeah.
Compared to you posting a blog, there's not much visual difference in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, initially when it's on your feed, right? Until you click on it.
Isn't there?
Then it should be a more distinguished.
There's like, oh, this is a blog, and it's like a specific box that they put format blogs in or something. You only see the cover photo.
And
then you
I have a hard time telling, like,
until
you click
like
on
a whole different page, rather.
We'll have to investigate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they
actually Mindsgaming. You were the one that I believe I tagged in Mac's blog, because like I noticed it and I was just like I clicked on it to read it, and then I was just like, wait a minute, there's no like text, and then I think you did it again, and I was talking to you, and then because I was having problems with my blog, I think you asked me about it, and I said, oh, this and that, and then I was like, I'm not too sure. I'm gonna tag Mindsgaming. I know he'll know what's going on.
Yeah. I love the old bugs, man. The old bugs that pop up again are the most fun, because then you can just sit back and watch everybody freak out, and you're like, I remember when I freaked out about that.
Well, how long have you been here? How long have you been on Minds?
I started my first account was in 2015. So
yeah, you've been around for a while. Yeah.
From the start. So I've seen all the problems, all the bugs, all the everything, man.
And there's been many.
Oh yeah, but it's been fun. It's fun though. It's all a game, man.
The jankiness is part of it, you know. It's
definitely.
It's got that old world vibe, that old world internet vibe.
You know, I look at mine
all the time.
My personal little game that I can play. It gives me gaming tokens. I can use them on the platform. I can buy stuff. I can unlock stuff.
Yeah.
I can troll. I can play meme wars. I can write something if I want to. It's just my little game.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
And nobody knows about it too. Really.
Yeah,
I mean, no normies.
Yeah.
You can't be a normie and be on mine. It's like that's not possible. as soon as you join the site, it's just like, oh no. I lost my norm status.
The jankiness of the site prevents, I guess, normies to sign up. Like I have had like friends, and I wouldn't necessarily consider them normies, but like we smoke weed and we have good conversations, and then like I'm like, dude, you'll be interested in this and blah blah blah. Like sign up, like, and they're always complaining about Facebook, and I'm like, dude, like sign up, and I help them sign up. And then they complain like about like different things, and then I see like they don't come back to it, and I'm just like, oh, okay, like you don't want to work for your content, I guess. Like like they complain about like how sucky and like how basic Facebook is. I'm like, well, I got something different for you. Like use this, and like the jankiness like is one barrier they have to like overcome.
Yeah. But you want barriers. You want barriers to the if it was too easy.
You make it too easy or too friendly. Like when you first get here, you get hit with a wave of all these different
you get shocked.
Like you get attacked with so many different views and like people's ideas at once, and then you don't realize all these people with all these different views already know all each other and they don't care about each other. Like we already know their view and our view, and we're cool with each other, but like we're gonna push our views on you now.
You develop a taste for it. It's like for me, I just on Facebook and Instagram for so long, and Reddit too. You just like you're so used to like normal stuff that when you get hit with all those different, like sometimes very crazy, very out there, very like maybe even immoral, like or dirty or like just like vulgar or gross or whatever. I don't know. I kind of like started to really enjoy, that kind of experience just because it felt authentic, like the real weirdness, the weird underbelly of humanity.
Yeah.
And I used to be in a place where like I'd literally be like scared. I'd be like, oh no, like what does it mean that I'm getting exposed to these ideas that I don't like? And like is it gonna change me? Is it gonna affect me? And nowadays, honestly, it's like I just have like such a distance. It's almost like studying like another culture, of being like it's like I don't
I understand
identifying or relating too hard to something I shouldn't relate to, or like anything like that.
I guess it's kind of funny, like
no, I'm not cynical though, but yeah,
like it's kind of interesting. Like I'm mainly in groups. I'm mainly like posting stuff, and like I know a few channels that I follow and I interact with. So I'm not in the feed that much, but like of course you can't be on Minds and not see like animated titties and like Nazi stuff and like Hitler was right and like just all this like crazy stuff, and like to me it kind of reminds me of this thing like when I was in Florida for like 6 months, and then I come back to my house, and then like I forgot because I live here in LA. I forgot like how noisy the freeway is. Like this is the first time I get back into my room and I realize I'm staying up at night just like hearing the freeway. I'm like, I've lived here for a long ass time. Like I don't remember the freeway like keeping me up. And I was just like, oh, I was 6 months away from like that noise. that now, like, because of the contrast, like now it stands out to me. And like in the same way, like there's a huge amount of noise on mine, but like I don't really see it because my focus is on like Curry Hobo or like VR, Mindsgaming, or having fun and like doing my own thing and like not really caring what anybody else is doing. But I have people that like, you know, if Censorship Sucks does something that he thinks I'll like, he'll tag me or whatever. Like people, like I could just like check it and like there'll be a few things that I could engage with just because people kind of know me and like, you know, say, hey, you might like this, and like, or do this.
That's how I see the off the wall content most of the time. Is people tag me, they're like, "Oh, you'll like this one."
You know, like sometimes just even going through meme wars and just like seeing what everybody's like thinking about, I guess, and like that like thing you'll see reflected later, like out there in the.
Yeah, I guess what I do kind of feels like homework in comparison. Like if I tag people on a poem, they're just like, "Oh, geez, I gotta do this work. I gotta read a poem." No, I want to look at some anime titties. That's not.
You're like,
I think about that too. I think about that too when I
tag you on one or two of those. All right.
Yeah. You know that's funny too when I think about with like. Sometimes I get really crazy with an edit and I keep on going like longer and longer, you know, they're just like spending all day like, oh, okay, let me add 2 more minutes to this or let me do this, let me do that. And then the next thing I know, it's like 15 minutes long and I think, okay, I spent a good amount of time on this, but I don't think anybody's going to engage with it because it's too long. They're just going to be like, oh, 15 minutes of madness? Like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the kind of like curse of kind of like, you know, you want substantial material, you want intellectual material, you want material that will change you. You want to feel like, you know, you did something productive today, and you know, everybody's posting like long, meaty, substantial stuff, and you only have so much time, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You know, it is kind of it's something to manage. It's something. You know, I'm still thinking about, you know, how I wish I had more attention. I honestly wish I just had more energy, more attention to spend on, you know, like a 5-page essay or something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
or I posted like a 10,000 page or 10,000 word like story I had been working on for the writer room critique, and no one's critiqued it, and I don't blame them. It's a lot.
Yeah. You know, I was going to actually ask you about that like critique room because, you know, it goes in ebbs and flows of different people that I work pretty closely, like creatively, and in whatever different ways. And there was like a long relationship that I had with Frosted Rose of us writing kind of together, and it happened like organically. But there was like what you were saying about spending time, like I would have to like mark out time to like read her poem. Like I would spend the night like reading her poem and like then thinking about like what I'm gonna write back, and then like spending a day like writing my own like poetic response to her. And so like that, like what you were saying, like took a lot out of me, like maybe doing other things, but doing that like process was something different of like my writing. And you know, it was interesting and it was different, but it in that respect of like having to give that time and attention to someone to like engage with their poem, and honestly like give them something in return. It's a lot to ask, and like you know, I've been
it is a big ask. You know, it requires an active reader, but you know, I go through phases. You know, I think of a lot. I use the metaphor of the market. You know, sometimes you're in a bull market and just like you just have so much energy to give, and you're like, wow, this has so much value to me. It honestly feels if I put this work in, I just like that work doubles in reward for me. You know, and I can just do this, and I can do that, and I can read that, and I can reshare that, and talk about this, and get it all together, and be like, man, we're really making progress. And then I go through these cycles where, you know, all of a sudden I wake up and I'm tired, and I don't feel as inspired. It maybe feels a little bit more forced. It feels a little more contrived to do that kind of work, all of a sudden this kind of venture pales in comparison to, say, like, all today I was arguing on Change My View on Reddit. And being in a polemical, what would they call it, a polemical mode? Basically when you're like in that kind of debate warrior mode of trying to, like, do, like, convince somebody to change their point of view, that kind of thing. And you think of all these different kind of arguments, like a completely different style of engagement than, like, I hate to say it, but a mutual admiration society. And something like the Writers' Critique Room wants to get away from that, and like that kind of hug box. There's nothing wrong with the hug box, and the hug box is really awesome and really good. And I operate on those assumptions in my poetry group, but it's limited. It can't be everything. Sometimes you do want to challenge and to be challenged, but the writer's room is. It's a little bit more difficult to inspire that kind of behavior. Like, first of all, in a network like this, if I take a risk and say, like, actually, this piece I think could be different, and it's weak for these reasons, people are sensitive about that. It might change your relationship with them a little bit. Oh, you're capable of that. Capable of saying that about what I write. And now things are a little different. You're taking a little bit of risk. So what the writers' room does is, or the critique room, is it says, the people should reward their critics with tokens, whether you make the changes or not. Just by making the effort is work that you should reward. And that should incentivize and also put a little distance between you and the critique, so you can reward them without feeling like you have to, like, listen really to what they're saying. Maybe it just doesn't resonate, but you can see somebody put in a lot of good work and still get good vibes out of it. So that's what's going on there.
Yeah, that's good. That's all good stuff. I mean, people can definitely get defensive about their content. Yeah, I don't,
for sure.
You put a lot of time into what you do, and you want it to resonate with other people. But once you have a connection with somebody and you gain that mutual respect with them, I think it goes a long way. Like, I have people that will message and DM me about the phrases and, like, rewriting of blogs that I do, and, like, oh, you should word it this way, that doesn't sound right here and stuff. And, like, they know that they're helping me. Like, they know that I'm like, oh yeah, thanks, man, that helps me a lot. Like, I'm gonna go back and I'm probably gonna do that. I might not change everything that you say, but like, that is helping me resonate with my viewer, because you are one of my viewers. So, like, and that's my ultimate goal, is to get back to you. Like, I want you to be able to understand me and connect with me in some sort of way.
Yeah, and people, I think there's a certain type of person that they do want to win you over, and they like knowing that there's a bar, a threshold, a standard to cross. Like, being like, man, this guy's really hard to impress, but guess what? I impressed him. That kind of feeling is different than a mutual hug box, in which it's like, okay, so the main practice is to appreciate what we're doing, and to appreciate in such a good way that it feels amazing, and it's real, and we know that posting here means something. Like, what I love is posting a poem and getting great feedback. And that feedback allows me to reread my poem and being like, oh, it is good. Yes, I don't have that doubt anymore. I don't have that niggling sense of like, oh, this is shit, nobody likes it. Your mind has opened up to yourself in a way. And a lot of times with critique, what happens is people instead their critique basically reads like, and I'm closed-minded here about this point. I'm closed-minded about this point. I'm definitely closed-minded about this. I'm not going to connect these two. I know you want me to, but I'm not going to do it. And some of that is just like, well, you could be open-minded. I mean, you could just assume that those things are connected.
What's interesting about right now what you're talking about is in my own different experiences of different ways. So, you know, in my professional life for a long time, I've been a cook. Yeah. And so when you tell somebody you cook and you've been in restaurants, inevitably when you eat dinner with somebody, they want you to like critique a dish. And I always feel weird about it. And I don't really like to do it. And not because that I don't have opinions on this dish or whatever. It's just that like, it's kind of interesting of what I'm willing to like critique someone on and not. And in my own opinion, being a professional cook and having to deal with different things, like there's some things that I don't find acceptable. And those are like techniques. Like if you don't fucking fry your stuff right, or you don't cook the meat right, but I don't like critique them on their choices of flavor profile or their chances of doing this. And maybe it didn't really work together. Well, you took that chance. I kind of understand why you did that. But if you don't do like the basic steps, and like that's how I'm gonna like critique you. And then like, you know, there's been times where I've been tagged in other things in like video editing of other people doing video editing, and they kind of like asked me like what I thought about it. And I always thought that was, you know, kind of interesting. And so I view it for like what I would like. And like, so I may not agree with like their content, like, and that's not what I could like gonna give them any like critique on, but like I would critique them on like, hey, like on timestamp 2:33, like you know, you should clean up that audio a little bit better because like you can't really hear, and like there's like static and like, you know, like simple things like. But I don't know if you're going for that, if you're going for freak out, then it worked. But I don't know if you were going for that or whatever. But like different things like that I was like, you know, kind of just giving him advice because I would want that. I would want like feedback about like, oh, maybe, you know, you did a hard end on this. Like I remember early on when I was doing stuff because of just trying to like put stuff out there, and then later critiquing my own stuff, or even people saying like, oh, this sound levels or whatever, different things, and then like that helped me to kind of like, you know, I'm always pretty critical of my own stuff and always trying to, you know, get better, but also too, I like the rawness sometimes of just like doing stuff and like having it more free flowing. And there's always, you know, that balance of like, I remember early on when I would edit, like the hardest show I did was like, I had to do like a real interview with this guy when it was like this Thailand 6 or whatever, like people from Facebook were getting like going to jail for like private messages. And then I got this activist from that got like exiled from Thailand. So I had like this big interview. And I just remember like later on, I'm like, oh, I can't do all my like freak out, like normal stuff. Like I have to like do a straight and, you know, professional like edit of this. And I found it like kind of taxing. And like, I was like, oh, that was way harder than all of my stuff that people think were like more creative and like more like complex. So like that was like the hardest edit that I had to do. Like I was just like, I wanted to make it like sound good, and like I found it like kind of boring and like tedious and not as fun.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
Raw is always interesting to do. Like I tagged you on one of my like a blog the other day, SatoriD, and I was a basketballist blog, and I was just like, I just was bored and wanted to write something. It was just like I didn't put it in an editor and look over it, and I don't even think I reread it before I posted it. I just wanted to get it out there and get something out there. I thought it was fun. But yeah, after I reread it, I had to make some changes and edit it up, you know, the wording and stuff like that. But yeah, it was interesting, man. The draw is always fun, man.
It's important. It's important to like when you get like that kind of like stream of consciousness of that inspiration to like write something and get that momentum and just like get it out there. Because if you think of like, oh, maybe I'm not saying this, like, it kind of like breaks you out of that flow. I found it for my own self, and just like, just like, you know, like spew it out, and then like later, that's the harder part of like going through it and editing it. And sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not. You just got to be like in the mood, I guess. I don't know. For me, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, for me, when I go back, sometimes I'm in the mood, and sometimes I'm just like, yeah, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. You know, I find when you're returning to like work that's like more than a year old, or maybe even like 6 months old, but like it's old work. Man, editing is so much easier. It's literally so much easier. You don't feel at all precious with what it is. And I feel like I always can find exactly what was bothering me before, like with ease. You know, something that I would like really play mind games with myself, like reading a text over and over and over again, being like, oh wait, like why does it like feel like this or that, or maybe if I change that here, and you know, yeah, years later I look back, I'm like, oh, that was easy, gung gung gung, done. That's what it was the whole time.
I've never understood it.
Dude,
I've never gotten it, but yeah, it's always like that. It's just like, oh yeah, that should be like that. Well, I don't know why I didn't put it like that. It definitely should be that way. Just...
Distance, you get distance. You're less precious, and like your mind, you know, it's crazy what you remember. Like you can watch a movie that you hadn't seen since you were like 8 years old, and you'll watch it and be like, oh yeah, I remember that shot. I remember how that worked. You know, you remember like very specific things about it. Or it's like the same thing with reading. Like, you know, you're hit with like thousands and thousands and thousands of words, and years later, you still remember certain like literally very specific details of how those words combined and what was happening and what it feels like.
Oh, yeah.
So it always lives within you.
You know,
and I feel like in the back of your mind, this stuff is like trying to be better. It's growing. It's you know, when you return, your skills have like in the background worked on it to make it better. And like now you have like, oh, effortless ideas of what it is and what it should be. You know, it's like, have you ever had this experience? Do you ever draw? I know you draw, Satori, right? Do you draw sometimes?
Yeah, a little bit. Curry has like encouraged me to like scribble and like do little visual notes.
Me to scribble too.
Yeah, Curry, which I like because like I mean when I write notes, it's kind of like you know, I take the format of like line paper and then I go you know, go up and down and maybe do lists and do different things, but in like a grid pattern or you know, line format. But when I scribble, because of like Curry's influence, like I don't view it that way. Like sometimes I start from a corner or maybe I start from the center and I think about it totally different than I would writing notes or doing an outline, which I enjoy that experience.
Yeah, I remember drawing. I don't know if you have this experience of like drawing when you're in like 8th grade or something like that, and then you don't draw for a while, and then you draw again like 5 years later, and your skills have improved without practicing it whatsoever, and I feel it's because like for me, you know, I remember being a kid and trying to draw and being like, I don't know. I mean, I want to make this realistic, but like, you know, your idea of what art is and what the process should be is just totally not developed. You go to a different medium, you work on a different medium, you go into a different space like video games, you're working, you're thinking, you're engaged of like what it means to be an adult, what it means to express yourself, all this kind of shit, what's meaningful to me. You know, you're just overloaded with art and what art is. All that input goes somewhere. Even when you're not actively working on it, you're passively gaining skills. It's sort of like EVE Online. You're passively gaining skills.
No, you know, even you know, this kind of goes into like information and like how we process information, just information in general. But what's interesting to me about this is that not only those, but for some reason, for me, the Dreams has this capability of processing information that you're unaware of and integrated into your system. Like I view like Dreams as like the defragging of the mind. So like it's like putting like material together. So like even stuff that you're not totally aware of. Like last night I had this like weird dream and I sit there thinking of like, what is the context for it? Because when you're in it, there's no context and you're trying to think, why am I dreaming of like my first girlfriend and why are we doing this task? And sometimes there is like context for it. Like, okay, this emotion is tied to this one and that's why it's being symbolized like that. But sometimes there's not a context. Like sometimes there is different things that I've like experienced in dreams. Like you're talking about like artwork. Like I'm talking about like hearing music and seeing visuals that I don't have context for. And I think, how did that get built upon this? Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I could figure out how to do that.
Where did it come from?
Where did it come from? Because I wish it came from me, but I have this like really deep understanding that it did not come from me. Like it's getting transmitted to me. Yeah.
It feels like an out of body kind of thing. Like there's this great other that it seems to come from, and that's like maybe the muse, or it's just like yourself projected upon the universe. Like there's a philosophical approach to God in which God is literally everything, every part of your brain projected upon this other out there. So if you think of like, oh, God is everything, what is everything? Well, phenomenally, what it means to you to conceive of everything is literally everything you've experienced, and that's it. Like when you think of like, oh, like God is like, things that I don't know. Things that I don't know is still just a thing in your head that's supposing, and it's just your imagination. It's like the potential of your imagination you're feeling right now. You don't actually know what that potential is. It's just this vague kind of concept in your brain at the moment. You're projecting that on God. God is literally everything that you've seen, everything that you know, everything that you could possibly think, and everything that you could possibly know as one concept outside of yourself. And that's what's functionally happening. Psychologically, what's happening with this God kind of concept. So I think. So what's the process in which we get better passively? And so I've got an interesting way to explain this that might work. Is that there's what's your subconscious is alive. It's doing stuff sort of like an economy with a raft of companies that you've invested in that's working in the background. Like you invest in different companies, those companies are doing shit, they're working in the background, you're not looking. And that's how it is. I think of this stuff as a supercomputer that lies below us and behind us. And I use this phrase, immediately before immediacy. If you think of this window of presence that we're in, immediacy, it's immediately before that, your brain is creating this stuff. It's creating this reality that you see. It's taking an input and creating this virtual reality in which you think is real. That is your conscious experience. And that has a supercomputer level power. So that is constantly doing shit underneath us. And these metaphors that we take in, for instance, poems or books or movies, or even like an event like this, like we're talking to each other, those ideas are working in the background. They exist in your head, where if you came back and saw this again, you'd be like, oh, yes, I remember. I did see that. And it's now a little different in my brain. Now that I'm re-encountering this idea, I've noticed I myself interact with it differently. That difference is all the work that the idea has done in the background. So if you say to yourself, if you tell yourself literally like, oh, like I'm stupid as hell. My conscious brain is stupid. My sentient, forced, contrived experiences is stupid, but the stuff that emerges out of me that's not me is really, really smart, really intuitive, really knows what it's doing, and I can trust it. Very fast. It can ride a bike. I can't consciously ride a bike. I can't describe how to ride a bike. This kind of intelligence that I'm sitting on knows how to do it, and it's just always going to be smarter than my conscious self. And a lot of people don't really value themselves. And I feel like, well, what is that doing in the background? If you're not valuing yourself, if you don't say like, if you're trying to force everything and you're saying like my subconscious is stupid and I hate it, and like people who talk about this subconscious like literally are worthless and shit like that, you are literally eating those ideas. And what are they doing in the background? They're probably fucking shit up. They're probably fucking shit up, making you feel terrible and stupid. Because you're investing in terrible ideas about yourself. There's a lot of people who invest in these very conscious, centralized, forced top-down ways. And a lot of times they have very forced top-down authoritarian politics that's projected from themselves. And a lot of times they're just like unhappy people. I mean, I feel like artists are natural, like libertarians. They know how things rise from the bottom up, and it really does, I think, help our development, our spiritual development, and doing good shit, doing awesome shit. And think about that.
Yeah,
I think of poems like mind technology. You read a poem, and it's working in the background to make you smarter at all times. That's how I think of it.
Yeah, man. I mean, everything in my view is all, everything is just information in my view. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter what it is. It's all just information that your brain is collecting and storing and processing. I could definitely call it a supercomputer, process. And, we don't see reality. We see what's processed by our brains as reality. So,
that's right.
It's really interesting.
So,
yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And sorry, go for it.
No, what was so interesting about this and is because, the same thing that you're talking about is there's this old essay that I read by Jack London, and he talks about he had to work in this child labor kind of stuff in the early 1900s. Anyways, he was canning like tomatoes or something at like 10 years old because he was poor and needed money and for the family and all this kind of stuff. But like he didn't go to school, but he always went to the library and he would read stuff about economics and like kind of teach himself. And when he got into economics, he viewed things differently. He saw that his physical labor depreciated over time, but he viewed his intellectual investment will appreciate over time.
Interesting.
And that there was like almost exponential of like investing in your intellectual side versus the physical side, because no matter how much you even try to keep it up, it's going to deteriorate over time. Like there's a law of diminishing returns physically, like, if like after like 40 or you know what I mean? Like even if you're doing like physical stuff, like there's taxing, like there's reason why a running back in like football like goes out at like the 23 because they've been like so taxed like physically and like
that is true. That is true. I would say apparently I would think the mind and the body is kind of similar in that as you age you go through different levels of capability. So for instance, when you're 20, apparently you can remember names really easily. Maybe it's because you just haven't met that many people. Maybe that's just how your brain is structured at that moment. When you're 30, your sense of time has really shifted. It's easier to now think 10 years down the line. You actually have a bigger capacity for abstraction. You have a bigger capacity of like seeing how like society is going to develop over like a large period of time. These greater pictures become much more resonant because you can handle much more of it. Every stage apparently gives you a different kind of capability with your brain. And I would say it's the same with your body. You might not be the peak athlete at 40 or whatever, but the investment that you put in your body of
with your skills.
Like you're much more integrated. You're much more, like your brain and your mind are much more integrated, and that would result in for instance, you're really confident when it comes to like interacting with the other sex or something like that. Everything does get better and worse at the same time, just in different kind of aspects.
We all age. That's why we want to be uploaded, right? That's why we all want to be uploaded and live forever. And
goddamn right we do. I mean, I do.
Where's Tesla at, man? We need our Tesla computer.
We need that neural link. We need to drill a wire into our brains, dude.
Yeah. One day it's coming, man. I think before I die, I'll see it. So I'll be.
I think so too. And you know what? It's a better kind of like religion than like what's great about like you're getting into the religious space when you start saying like, oh, I'm gonna say the technological singularity and be into utopia and live forever.
Live forever, get uploaded.
That's a religious concept. That's a religious idea. But what's great about it is there's no institution that's forcing dogma on you to believe it or to do anything about it, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're not,
you know, the interesting thing about that is that it's not only something to believe in, but like you could actually work towards it in a sense. Like that's like a project that like conceivably is probable, maybe even possible to achieve.
Yeah.
And that people are working towards it in a serious, very serious manner.
People are working towards it right now as we speak about it. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
It's not like, you know, like before this was a spiritual or belief thing, and now it's like something that is being worked towards. Yeah.
Well,
which is interesting.
This is actually something that I'm working on. This is can I sketch it out really quick of what I think is a compelling thing to me, anyways, of how to think about this stuff. Is okay. So we're supposed to be doing this great reset, you know, and this idea of a great reset inspired by the pandemic is basically saying, look, this is an opportunity to really reassess on the global level of what humanity is trying to do, and specifically about climate change. Climate change means, you know, that we have to find a solution to climate change, and we got to do it now with urgency, or we're all going to die. And the Great Reset will help us do that. And you know, to me, thematically, the Great Reset is like, oh, Great Reset. What we can do is we can just, like, everything that we're thinking, we can literally cut that off and say, oh, it's obsolete. Doesn't really matter anymore. We need to think new things now. You know, it's like there's kind of a destructive aspect.
It's time to reboot the operating system of humanity.
Yeah, right. These kinds of ideas. So what I've been doing is actually approaching it from like a radically critical position of climate change itself, not as a climate change denier, but more like denying that there's ever been a solution on the table. There hasn't been. There hasn't been a solution on the table that results in some non-trivial impact on the situation. Even if America was to stop its oil production, stop its oil consumption and its production, you would literally, not a whole lot would change, because the price of oil would go down and developing countries would suck that up in developing faster, because they can burn more oil and they can do more shit and they can make more shit and sell more shit, and they're just going to pick up the slack. And maybe that's not exactly a sophisticated systems analysis, but it's just enough to give the impression that on a global system, you can't just make progress in one country and have that be a solution, because the system is dynamic. You know, it's a game that we're all playing. If one player just doesn't play, the other players eat their lunch. You know, it's a system predicated, it's a game predicated on growth.
It's all one ecosystem, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter if one person.
At minimum, what a solution to climate change is a global engineering project on the scale of designing a geopolitics, designing a global economy, and designing the weather all at the same time. That's the scale of engineering project that they're talking about. There's not the only thing that achieves that is global communism, to the severity of controlling local governments everywhere. Okay, so that scale of a project, that complexity, it's really exciting. It's like, oh, you want to think on that scale? Okay, in that case, that rivals the complete scientific understanding of the human brain. You could take $100 trillion that you were going to do the Green New Deal with, that wouldn't actually produce any non-trivial impact on the problem that you could prove. Like literally, like we wouldn't really see that much of a difference with climate change from that. We'd be able to pat ourselves on the back saying we're doing a great job. But take all those resources, take all this kind of worldwide concern and stress and anxiety and energy working on and thinking about this stuff, and actually just funnel that into the complete understanding of the brain. Because if you get that, you hit the technological singularity and the problem solves itself. You got super intelligence, they can figure out how to do an engineering project at that scale. You know, you're literally, but that's the kind of scale that they're talking about in order to solve climate change. So what's really fascinating about that is that mimics there's this reoccurring pattern is this nature nurture entanglement of like, oh, like is sex biological and innate, or is it gender roles? Is it like environmental and cultural factors, kind of a thing? And this, both sides are entangled, and they're contingent, and they're irreducible, and they're found at literally every level of analysis. And a lot of people ignore one and then focus only on the other, and then their system breaks because that thing is actually only a thing in relation to this other thing. You know, it doesn't exist without it. It's completely meshed. You cannot theoretically just take them apart and saying, oh, they're separate now. So this is the same pattern in which people are saying, oh, global climate change, and then the scientific understanding of the human brain is a single little research target. It's very small compared to this worldwide design. You're literally only trying to understand one thing, but it is as complicated as the world. Like the brain is complicated as the world is as complicated as the brain. And so this mimics this self-world relationship that we're always in. You can't get out of, you can't be a self without a world. You can't be in a world without a self, only in like very like limited liminal conscious states. So I think it's that's going to be something that I really want to play around with, and hopefully getting this natural turn and away from these contrived authoritarian impulses that could actually be really, really bad. Like talking about ecofascism, you're talking about this, this power that is so far removed from everybody else that they themselves get like totally warped on it. They completely dehumanize the rest of us because they cannot relate. They're just so global in mind. Getting that to turn into the individual, all the themes of where I think we need to go intellectually and culturally, at least as like a counterculture. You can then really start to focus back onto something as interesting as knowing yourself. So that's kind of my deal. That's what I've been working on. One of the things, anyways.
Yeah, man, it's really interesting stuff, man. I think that if we put enough time and energy into understanding our own brain and really pushing for the singularity to happen, it's I think a lot of people have fears that are just so crazy and out there that it's hard to stop them from being scared of it.
It's very scary at every point. At every point in the unknown is designed to be scary.
But I think in the long run, it's just going to be good for us because I mean that's really where we can be for. If I'm 80 something and I can upload myself and, my consciousness to something with all the knowledge that I've had for the last 80 years, how great is that? I mean, that's something that's I mean, that'd be awesome.
So, imagine the kind of spiritual state that you'd be in at 80 years old, in which you didn't feel like you were on the decline, but you actually could consolidate all the information into this like unreal type of wisdom, like where you're like, wow, I'm the person, I'm like literally the best version of myself at this moment at 90. And I don't feel like I'm close to death and like it's all for naught, like kind of seeing the world, like the culture completely like just be totally alien and bizarre to you, being tortured by these like medical systems trying to keep you alive. You're on like 5 different machines, like floating in wires and being like, fucking Christ, this cancer.
I think to circle this whole thing back around and to wind things down is this kind of goes into this thing that we're all kind of like wrestling with, but what we started off in the beginning, and Mac, you were saying about this like passive knowledge, like income that we have, and that like it seems like we're trying to extend that and externalize that and like have it so that we could keep on increasing our ability of our intelligence to then have it reflect out into reality and have this feedback loop that like sustains itself at scale, at scale that where you would need to you see this in our immediate future where 30 is now like what used to be someone like in their 20s of like what they needed to learn to just navigate being an adult in this world.
100%.
It's going to be even worse later of like the complexity of what you're going to need to know of like holding all your keys of your blockchain wallet in your head and doing all sorts of other, advanced mathematics just to navigate on cyberspace to unlock it so you're not in a centralized system. You know, like it's going to be, I see it being like split of like walled gardens that are centralized and then wild west of decentralized, but you need to be fucking knowledgeable and geared up or you're going to get eaten up in the wild west. You know, your whole keys of your identity will be stolen. Your wallet, all you've been earning in your life is taken by someone just because you're not staying on top of
and that will inspire a whole like on the local immediate level and a whole different way of thinking about the kind of risks that you're opening yourself up to and the kind of practices that you do every day to prevent that from happening. Like a whole new survival mechanism will evolve from us. But I did resonate with that idea that 30, I mean, adolescence has seemed to push to like 30, I think. I don't know, I'm 32. I'm probably going to know about this, maybe I can judge when I'm like 45 or like 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that evolution has always, or at least in us, has really pushed adolescences back and back and back and back. It used to be that you'd be an adult at like 12, thousands of years ago.
But
or like, women were giving birth at like literally like 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
And then people were living until like they were 30, until they were 40. So they were middle-aged at like 25. Even 50 years ago, you were an adult at like 18. By 20, you were like married, you were starting to have kids, you were working where you're going to work for the rest of your life. And now the world is so complicated. It's so complicated. And what we're asking people is so complicated. And the kinds of media technologies available to them are so advanced that adolescence itself has changed and it has stretched and prolonged, probably because they're going to be living longer lives anyways. But in order to just pick up more tools and more, to develop more before we are that mature, self-sufficient, fully sexualized kind of creature that we're supposed to be.
It's like we've been on developing different tracks at different rates of whether it's the individual or the collective, and they've been like kind of like separated, and they got like disconnected way back when someone decided to augment some wisdom text. But we won't get into that right now. But there's different tracks of like the collective and all this kind of stuff. And what you were saying, this kind of dystopian communist thing where we're all like hive mind and we're working towards this Earthship kind of thing. And we're all wearing gray suits and we're all paying everything with Facebook Libres and giving everybody likes as payments and like wanting to be part of like the group and like being scared and all this kind of stuff, like all of that stuff, right? And then there's this like the other like the individual will, right? And your individual self and like being self-sufficient and like the self-sufficiency, which like sort of like survivalist and like maybe like learning things that will help you like survive, but there's like this digital like survival that you need, and there's tools that you need to develop and be aware of, and being able to engage with basically toxic media and toxic things, but also too being able to navigate that space and being able to, in some sense, use that as like like being just like building your immunity to like virus media and like being able to like
I think of
engage with
it like
different
this,
things.
like
I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, think of it like this. I don't know. Like, remember back when we only had like AOL, right?
Okay, yeah.
And every website you got onto had an ad. Remember that? And like they would annoy the hell out of you, right? Those ads, those pop-ups annoy. They would get you mad. Like you'd be mad at those pop-ups. Now pop-ups, you don't even care, do you? Do you know what half the pop-ups are that can pop up on your screen anymore? No, you just click X, right? You just bye. Like it's just like, and that's that immune. Like we don't care about those ads anymore. Like we don't look at them. We don't care about them.
Or even like a meme that is meant to like trigger you or whatever, that it's like something very like overly like sexual or overly violent or ideologically extreme. Like I see them and I just kind of like laugh, and like sometimes I'd be I could have done it in a better quality, or like that joke. I was like, it's not even that good. Like, why is everybody like?
You could have spun it this way, and it would have got a lot more down votes.
I think maybe there's one way to characterize what capital does to us as it develops, this technological capital evolution that we're in, that it pushes humans to their limits, and it forces them to make changes and adapt to circumstances that they are like increasingly foreign and bizarre. So like a human working in a factory, that's not something that he would naturally be doing 10,000 years ago. But all of a sudden he's he literally is changing his life and suffering in having that change happen, having this enormous change hit his culture. And you see this in indigenous societies, in which they're just met with this technological evolution, like without seeing its like slow incline of trying to handle it, and the culture is fucking destroyed in doing it, and it's really painful. It's really, really painful. So one of the processes that we're in is like there's different classes of people being developed. One of those classes are Facebook people. They're literally people who've never been to anything that they would consider the quote unquote dark web. They would never ever be somewhere, whether it was or not. Like if it aesthetically was that, no, thank you. And maybe, they're the types of people who in school, when the teacher tells you to think about something, they can think about it, and they can just take their minds and just shove it into any kind of container that they're told to shove it into. And then they predicate their lives on doing that for the algorithm as a job, day in, day out, saying like, oh, well, my life now is 5 times a day, I'm making a post that's going to be in this format, in this way, in this content, in this style. Okay, that's what the economy wants of me. I'll do that. And it like changes the person. It literally does change the person to do that. And these different formats are changing us en masse in this kind of same way. So everybody who's being changed by Minds is being changed in kind of the same way. The same kind of habits, maybe like a little bit different habits, but it's definitely, the longer that we're all here and all subjecting ourselves to this experience, the more we're all going to be shaped by it, kind of a thing. And as these processes develop, these shapings are going to be much, much more, going to be ever more distinct, but ever so much more predicated on the systems themselves in a way that maybe weren't before. Like there's this idea of like, if you had a technology like Neuralink, if you had these tech bros, or say maybe a cryptocurrency class of people, they're millionaires, they got lots of money, they got a lot of resources, they start experimenting with transhumanism, and they're literally evolving away from the group of like humans and accelerating that evolutionary process, doing gene editing to their kids. They're literally trying to form superhumans that are superior to us. That's one of these kind of sci-fi concepts.
Wait. This isn't sci-fi though. But you know about CRISPR, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we already have. You can start doing that stuff now. Like, the whole body hacking things. Like, you can literally like get on Amazon and get one.
You know what's interesting about that is like this is a process that's only being accelerated. Like beforehand, the process of the elite was to restrict or to give advantage of people having knowledge. Like way back when the written language was like only the people of power knew how they had the controls of like what got printed and who could read, and like that's why majority of the people were read too. They couldn't read as well, and then like this whole thing, like then more people being able to read and write, and then like so then they had to have locked up knowledge of only a certain class of knowledge. Like you have to be this elite knowledge, and like all this stuff like keeps on getting more and more that way, where you see people of means get their kids into elite universities. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole rigged already intellectual opportunity economy already here, and that they're already to accelerate that, because what GameStop really showed was that everyday people could figure out the game just as easily as the elite, because with a little bit of work and a little bit of effort, that someone could figure that out and get disseminated just as quickly, and that they could go tit for tat between like a collective kind of mesh network of knowledge versus this kind of Goliath algorithm. And they were going back and forth warring of like, who's gonna, like, are we gonna pump and dump this thing? And they were going back and forth with these war tactics. But I find that stuff interesting of this whole bigger picture of this accelerating of knowledge, but also trying to contain it. And like it's always like this like push and pull of like what gets out there into like disseminated more and more to more people, and then like what other people are trying to close off and trying to make like put intellectual property on, and like, oh, we got to keep this there and not let. I mean, this is the whole thing about like even things that get developed now, like they're put in like black boxes. Like you can't look at a new engine and like see how it works. Like you have to go to a place and like do it. Like they're locking down a lot of information.
Man. I think everything needs to be, open source and more. Everything should be viewable to everybody else, so you can at least look at it and see, get your own opinions of it, get your own thoughts of it. But it's just not like that.
It's like trying to really manage this surreal force of the internet, where like it's like this sociological tab of acid that is ingested, and all of a sudden, these ideas that, well, I mean, I guess they're not necessarily new ideas, but it's ideas they always thought they needed to control. They could control in the population, and now it's like, oh, they're all going to be thinking about it all the time. What's gonna happen? And you just never know. It's surreal, and you can't predict it. And oftentimes this shit backfires. Where they think, well, I mean, I guess they do have precedent of like authoritarian governments. Where like for decades you're living with this kind of censorious, weirdo totalitarian government where you just know that they're wrong. That it's not true. That the processes in which they got to it is purely to do with their power and like nothing else. Like you're not naive to, what they're pulling. And I mean, they do that in China. They did that in Russia. It happened. That kind of stuff happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
But can the American people? I feel like the American people just naturally don't put up with that. Like they've had decades and decades of saying like, we don't do that shit. We wouldn't stand for that.
If you say enough things enough times, it doesn't matter.
Enough time.
That is it. I think that's the interesting thing of like where that what you were saying is that, you know, like if you say that enough, that like it's not like no longer like true or something, like that itself could be a trap. Like I remember when I was younger, I was like really into punk, and I thought, you know, I was fighting against like mainstream. I hated everything on the radio and fuck everybody who wore like t-shirts of like these stupid bands and all this kind of stuff. Later, you know, from perspective, I view that as a trap as itself, thinking that I was anti this and anti that. Like that became like my mask, and like in a sense, I think America's mask is like we're totally free, we're blah blah blah, and like that's
yeah. But really, they have the Puritan history of moral crises and panics, and, you know, really trying to control in this like religious sense, you know, people and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's very, you know, it's very divided, but you know, it's very divided with love. I feel everybody loves America deep down. You know, they just you gotta find.
I do.
Yeah.
I love America.
Yeah, but yeah. What systems do you play on? Are you like a PC gamer?
Well, I mean, I have a PC, but my PC is really old. So, you know, I think I do want to save up. I mean, I don't know, like if I get a little extra money, I think I'm putting it in crypto. But, you know, one of my dreams is to buy like a great computer and like a great monitor to go with it, and to enjoy what the last 5 years, 10 years of gaming has done. But right now, basically, the gaming that I do is on Oculus Quest. The Oculus Quest 2.
Yeah.
Facebook.
Fair enough.
Your face. Yeah, I'm now like, I've got my VR legs. I don't find it that engrossing. I mean, it's engrossing. I mean, it is immersive technology, but I don't find it like all that strange. It's like normal to me now.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You've adapted to it. It's like it's a little brain test, right? Where you put on these goggles and they make you see either further away or shorter. Like everything's either really far away or really shorter distance from you, right? And you have to shoot a ball into a hoop 100 times with these goggles on, and then you take the goggles off and see if you can shoot the ball in the hoop. Do you think you're going to shoot the ball in the hoop during the 100 times, or right afterwards?
Oh, right afterwards.
No, you'll never get it right afterwards.
Oh, right, because it's completely. Yeah. So it's before. You're supposed to do it before you put it in the goggles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would honestly like. I would smoke weed and I would like put these goggles on.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I'd be like, what am I doing to my sense of reality, man?
That's funny.
I was just like I want to play games and I want to focus. I don't want nothing to distract me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man. So you just mostly Minecraft?
I mean that was the last computer game I really
okay.
time into. I mean, I remember playing a lot of StarCraft 2 back in the day. Played a lot of World of Warcraft. Came out.
Yeah, man. World of Warcraft, yeah, buddy.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them. I played out not too recently.
I guess let's end it on what was like your childhood game, like, you know, what was your go-to thing?
Mario.
Yes.
Oh, Mario. Yeah. Mario classic.
First one. That game blew my fucking mind. I was like 6.
Oh man.
Like, you know, like what we actually don't know what this technology is doing to people and like brains. We don't. This is new technology. This like 3D kind of shit. And, you know, especially something that you're cybernetically hooked into. You know, it's not just you're passively receiving a screen image. You're like hooked into this game. And it's almost like this out-of-body experience where you see this avatar of you running around in this other kind of world, the sphere of sorts.
Yeah.
That was a whole like Mario 3D Mario thing. It's like spheres, and they really repeated that in Mario Galaxy type series. Yeah, I mean, it literally. I remember that being such a hit, such a dose of profundity. You know, actually, they say that kids, if you abuse a kid, it's going to assume that the future is going to be really tough. It's going to prepare for a very dangerous world, and which is why a lot of abused kids turn out to be like criminals, or they have all sorts of kind of dysfunctional problems. They really ramp up the anger and the violence and shit like that. For me, it's the opposite. When I was at 6, I was like, this is fucking magical. This is a persistent out-of-body experience. What are they gonna think of next? Jeez, when I'm 16, when I'm basically producing this sense of absolute wonder that I feel like is kind of like a drug almost. It is that magical technological feeling that then they recreated with the phones. We really felt like the world was changing fast, and that was kind of what was happening with the internet. But for the previous generation, as a kid, you kind of just grow up with it. But yeah, it was like Mario. It was Zelda. I played a lot of Zelda. Those two were probably the most influential game experiences, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's good to have another Mario on, because the last couple shows have all been Sonic, and I've been sad. Needed a Mario friend on.
Oh yeah, shoot. Yeah. So usually people say Sonic, eh? They grew up with Sega.
Yeah, they're so far we've had a lot.
Yeah,
of
the
Sega
last two they were Sega.
Nintendo fans kind of cringe me, to be honest, like a little bit, just a little bit. But I will always be a Mario fan. Always.
That's right. Right.
I was so happy that Odyssey was as good as it was. Sometimes with the franchises, you're just like, man, they're playing on my nostalgia, and it's not that great.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is like legit, like the best Mario experience in the world, in the galaxy of all time. This one right here.
The first Game of Thrones video game I ever played was so saddening to me. I was just like, I just want to uninstall you.
Yep.
Dude, those were always like the worst like games, or like the ones like based off of like they're an afterthought of like a franchise, like
Lord
of the Rings, and like everyone like it's like there's like, oh, we got to do a video game, like let's get some like generic video game and slap on characters, like re-sleeve it with these characters, and you're just like playing it, and you're just like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
It's like the worst.
It's the only one that did it right was Star Wars. So and now they're terrible. Like some of the Star Wars games now are bad, but like the older Star Wars games, they were good. I like those, man.
Yeah, Star Wars felt differently back then.
Yeah, definitely, man. I could play that for hours back in the day.
I remember playing that on N64.
Yeah,
Battle of the Empire.
Oh yeah.
A lot of Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, man. That was
X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter put down the PC.
Okay. Yeah. Man.
Yeah, I never got into Coder. Knights of the Old Republic.
Okay.
I never got into that. But I heard it was really good. I heard the twist at the end was phenomenal.
It was all right. The game was all right. I like the original one, but
yeah,
man. It was good having you on and talking.
Yeah, it was great being here, dude. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we'll have to have you back on and do some have you read one of your poems sometime, man.
Oh hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And likewise, if you want to come to the gathering I'm doing next Thursday, we're doing it. I'm actually, you know what I'm going to be doing? Announcing a 300 token prize
Oh, nice. Yeah, send me some details on that. I know we have a show probably around this time Thursday, but yeah, we'll see if we can stop by, or at least I will. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, or I mean, at least the recording will be up online. I gotta figure out how to do that, but it's probably
and with that, we're always down to help spread the word of whatever's going on, and just like promoting activity on Minds is always big with
yeah. So keep us updated on that so we can get the news out and see if we can drop by and say hi and stuff like that, man.
Sweet. Yeah, good chat. I think we cover a lot of ground tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Give a couple shout outs. Give like 3 shout outs to somebody.
Three shout outs.
3 shout outs. Three channels.
I guess like some channels that you've been engaging with that maybe that.
Well, okay, I'd shout out first of all, Unframe of Mind had me on their podcast last week, and I really appreciate that. And these seem like really cool dudes. And also Censorship Sucks, because I've been meaning to watch his interview with the voxel guy who does Minecraft sculptures and shit. Seems like it's like really involved, really depth. I love that game, so I do want to watch that interview. I've been meaning to. I also want to shout out to Giolani Design. She's a great artist and really great. She really engages with people, and I feel is a great talent to have as far as what she's trying to do with this site. So
great stuff. Make sure you know.
She made the writer's critique room,
Nice.
And she's got an art
cool.
Too.
Yeah. Make sure to check out their channels. We'll have to stop by and check them out. And if you guys are listening, make sure to stop by and check out everybody's channel that we mentioned.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Cool. I hope you guys have a good night, man.
Thanks. See you guys.
Yeah. Good
night. Later.